Let's talk about the indispensable employee. Now, in reality, no one's indispensable. All of our replacements are an email, a FaceTime, or a Skype conference call away. But there are certain characteristics that we can use that make us indispensable. One of the characteristics is fear. Think of Joseph Stalin. He was indispensable simply because he scared the bejesus out of everybody. You never knew what Joseph Stalin was going to do. Or they're highly respected. In this case, you can think of Mother Teresa, the complete opposite of Joseph Stalin. No matter where she went, she was highly respected. Indispensable people generally are highly well connected, socially, politically, economically, and that gives them a lot of flexibility. They also have irreplaceable skills, such as being fluent in Russian or Chinese, two languages that are not commonly spoken in the United States, unlike Spanish, French, or German that we learned when we were in school. They also have independent power. Independent power beyond what the country or the community or the world are doing. Citizens of the world, as you might call them. They also have a unique knowledge. And when you think of this unique knowledge, think of Enrique Fermi or Albert Einstein, two people whose knowledge was literally irreplaceable and indispensable to the Manhattan Project that gave us the first atomic bomb during World War II. And finally, they have independent means. Now, we're not talking someone who's making $300,000 or $400,000 a year. We're talking about someone who has means that allow them to literally be a citizen of the world and be comfortable in Switzerland, New York, or Albuquerque, New Mexico. Think of independent means and the changes it makes to your life as the gentleman who won the lottery and was asked by the reporter if they were going back to work the following day. And the person said, "Sure, I'm going back to work on Monday," but with a completely different attitude. So this is Dr. Tom saying stay with us as we explore the indispensable employee.
Okay, in this lesson we're going to talk about who is indispensable. And as you can see on the slide in front of you, we have a few bullet points we're going to cover. Now, as I said before, because of modern technology with Skype and email and the modern job board, your replacement is literally a mouse click away. A friend of mine, his son works for a major car manufacturer as an engineer, quality control engineer, and he talked about how his son would sit in his office in Dallas, Texas, and he would monitor the manufacturing processes of the company's plant, which was several states away. And he talked about how, the job was great and the benefits and the money he was making and saving. And on the surface, it appeared really, really great. And then I thought about it and I thought, wait a minute. If he's sitting in Texas and he's monitoring a job through a computer in, let's say, Ohio, how much more difficult would it be to move that position to, let's say, South Korea or China or Hong Kong, wherever it happened to be? Because in real time, it would make a difference where the engineer was. The engineer could go into the system and make some minor modifications and change the same result. So even though on the surface, because this gentleman is a highly qualified engineer, it looks good, with technology, easily replaceable. Now, what you want to do, as you can see on the chart here, we're going to talk about those who are feared and respected, those who are well connected, irreplaceable skills, power, and unique knowledge, as well as those of independent means. And positioning yourself within the organization to become less disposable is key. Here's an example of how fast that can happen. Years ago, I worked in Los Angeles in a software company, and we were product managers. We would develop the software and manage the whole process from marketing and advertising, development, quality control, literally a cradle-to-grave kind of operation. And every Monday, as a matter of fact, we had our weekly product manager meeting. So we, rumble on into the meeting like we normally did. Sitting across were three brand new shiny faces. And this should have been our first key that something was going on, because they had just the week before replaced our director. And we talked to introduce ourselves to each other and found out that the three people sitting across from us had literally just graduated from Stanford and Harvard with MBAs. And they had been hired as our replacements. And so our job was literally, as we were told by the new director, was to train these people to take over our jobs, but they never told us what we would be doing after we had completed this training process. So I thought, well, okay, let's see. I'm training you to take my job, but I don't have a job when this training is over. So why would I really want to train you well? So I take this guy and we go back to my office, and over the course of a couple of weeks, I'm walking him through the steps of the whole process. And it occurred to me that he had never been a project manager before. He had a Harvard MBA, but he had no real world experience. So at the very end of the training process, I turned to him and I said, has it ever occurred to you that everything I've told you over the last several weeks is wrong? And he looked at me and he thought, well, what? And I said, yeah, maybe everything I've told you is wrong. Maybe I've been lying to you this whole time, because at the end of the day, once I'm done here, you take my job. And he said, well, why would you do that? And I said, okay, Mr. Harvard, let me explain to you. I am training you to take my job, but I don't have a job after I'm done training you. So the more I can train you incorrectly, the worse you will look and the better I will look, and they'll have to hire me back into this position. So that's one of the things, that knowledge of how processes work is key. Now, those people who are also well connected within the organization helps a great deal. And so we asked ourselves, well, why did they go out and replace all of us with people from Stanford and Harvard with MBAs? Then it occurred to us that the two owners of the company, each of them was a alumni of either Stanford or Harvard, and they had gone back to the school to do the recruiting because it made them look better to hire people from their university, and that's why they did it. And since we didn't have Harvard and Stanford MBAs, we didn't have the same knowledge set, credentials, and things like that. Now, those are irreplaceable skills, having a Stanford or Harvard MBA. They're irreplaceable skills. But on the other side, knowledge is power. And you have to have some type of unique knowledge to set yourself apart. A good example would be a foreign language. For example, a friend of mine, his wife is from Holland and he was originally from Hong Kong. So his children would travel back and forth, alternating summers, with their grandparents in either Holland or the grandparents in Hong Kong. And his children became trilingual. They fluently read and spoke and wrote American English, Chinese, and they also did Dutch. And so they had a unique skill set that in any organization would make them irreplaceable, especially since they knew people in those countries and could blend into society. So that's one of the things we'll talk about as we move on to our other lessons of the indispensable employee and who is indispensable. And this is Dr. Tom, and I'll be right back.